Welcome to Brighteon Broadcast News for Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. Mike Adams here. Thank you for joining me today. The working title for today's episode is Disease, Debt, and Death, the trifecta of the corporate-controlled UNIPARTY, which is what we're all suffering under right now. Almost doesn't matter if it's Democrats or Republicans at this point. It's a uniparty of disease, debt, and death. And by that, I mean Big Pharma, that's disease. And then big banks, that's debt, big banks and treasuries and Wall Street and all of that. And then the military industrial complex, that's the death industry. These three things, disease, debt, and death, they are promulgated precisely because, well, they are the most profitable things of all. Think about how much money was made by Big Pharma during the COVID-19 pandemic. Think about that. All the payouts for all the vaccines, with government just printing money and handing it over to the drug companies to manufacture vaccines, which actually turned out to be biological weapons that caused so many side effects. It created a second wave, a windfall of cash flow for Big Pharma to treat all the diseases caused by the vaccines. It's unbelievable. So that's Big Pharma. And it's huge profits, and also granted complete legal immunity, of course. You can't sue Big Pharma over the COVID vaccines because the vaccines were never actually approved by the FDA. They're only emergency use authorization jabs. Did you know that? And the vaccine court supersedes the United States Supreme Court. So they've got it all locked up. It's a giant racket of disease, and they want to keep you diseased. That is, of course, one of their key goals is to keep everybody down, make sure that you continue to generate profits for Big Pharma, and make sure that you're not well enough to think clearly and become an innovator or an entrepreneur or lift yourself out of a government control system and begin to think for yourself. They'd rather you stay medicated. Here, have some antidepressants, have some psychiatric drugs. Oh, here, have some, Alzheimer's drugs. Want to keep you medicated. Oh, by the way, the interview today is with Jonathan Otto, and he's the creator of a docuseries that begins, it airs for free this Saturday at Brighteon University, which is brighteon.com. You can register for free. The series is called Disease in Reverse. This is about reversing disease, obviously. This is about forbidden health knowledge that the establishment absolutely does not want you to know. And Jonathan Otto, he interviewed many, dozens of top experts and then put together this docuseries, a docuseries that teaches you how to reverse various conditions. And then he gave us permission to air this. So again, that begins this Saturday, and you can register at brighteon.com. That's just the letter U. And one of the reasons we do that, by the way, is because we want you to no longer be enslaved by the disease trap system. We want you to set yourself free with, health freedom and being able to think clearly and being able to be mobile and productive and functional in society. And that's not what Big Pharma wants for you. And anyway, so don't miss that series. Again, Disease in Reverse, brighteon.com. Now, getting to debt, the second element of the trifecta here, for debt and big banks and money printing, of course, they want to keep you indebted for your entire life. They don't ever want you to get ahead. And in order to make sure that they do that, they keep looting. They steal from you constantly the value of the dollars that you have earned and saved, to where you're always falling behind. You're always slipping backwards. Even if you work yourself half to death to try to get ahead, by the time you pay taxes, then with whatever you have left, well, they loot that too through money printing, causing inflation, and your money is worth less and less, and you end up slipping behind. And guess what the best way is to get ahead in America financially? Guess what? And I'm not advocating this. I'm just pointing it out because it's kind of sick and twisted. The fastest way that people become millionaires and billionaires in America is to join the industries that push disease, debt, and death. In other words, to join Big Pharma or to join Big Finance, Wall Street, big banks, or to join the military-industrial complex, that's where all the cash flow is. That's where the government is handing out money left and right. So for people who don't have any morals or ethics, but who want to make a lot of money, guess what? They go into pharmaceuticals, or they go into the debt industry, or hedge funds, or what have you, or they go into death, which is the war industry. And then they rake in the bucks. Now, probably they sacrifice their eternal souls in doing that, just going along with evil, but that's how they make money. Everybody else can barely get ahead because the money is designed to lose value every day, the currency, I should say, the dollar. And that's why I've always said gold and silver and land and things that hold value, because the government can't print gold. This is so critical to understand. The government can't print silver. They can print dollars. They can't print precious metals. And I do have an announcement coming up, in a week or two, about gold, kind of stemming from the results of my gold smelting experiments and gold composition and purity testing using my ICP-MS mass spec system at the lab. I'll be announcing something very interesting along those lines in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, just understand. Robert Kiyosaki told me this when I interviewed him. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said, "I don't invest in anything that the government can print." Yeah, completely agree. Or maybe he said, I don't hold anything, or I don't own anything that the government can print. Right. If you're holding dollars, you're getting scammed. So the only way to not get scammed is to realize which assets hold value even as the dollar becomes worthless because of money printing, and that's gold and silver. All right, and then the third one now, the military-industrial complex, the death industry. Check this out. Over the last, year and a half since the special military operation was launched by Russia against Ukraine, we've heard so many announcements from Biden and leaders of European countries that, hey, okay, we've just authorized another, $50 billion or $10 billion for military aid to Ukraine, right? You've heard this constantly. And right now it's up over $115 billion and rising just for Ukraine. Well, did all of that money actually go to Ukraine? No. Some of it did, but a lot of that money actually went to pay the weapons manufacturers. Yeah, Boeing and Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and whoever else paid them tens of billions of dollars to order military equipment and munitions. So they're ordering tanks, and they're ordering artillery pieces, and they're ordering infantry fighting vehicles and what have you, and even more aircraft and so on. Well, that stuff is currently being made. It's in manufacturing. It's going to take years for most of that equipment to be made. Meanwhile, the war against Ukraine is just about over. It won't be long before Ukraine is signing terms of surrender. That will happen probably, I'm guessing, in early 2024. And it's over. Ukraine cannot militarily defeat Russia. That's done. So by the time these weapons are done being manufactured and they're supposed to be sent to Ukraine, it's too late. Ukraine's already signed the new peace accords or negotiated settlement or whatever it is. So then what will happen to all those weapons? Well, they won't go to Ukraine. Those will just end up, in a parking lot somewhere in America. But those military companies, the defense contractors, they will have collected tens of billions of dollars to make weapons that are then just sitting around. Kind of in the same way, and rusting, by the way, and collecting dust and becoming obsolete. This is in the same way that Big Pharma collected billions of dollars from various governments, local, federal, state, whatever, and even different nations around the world. And then, especially after the boosters got rolled out, a lot more people decided they didn't want the boosters. So there were too many vaccines. Nobody wanted them. So then these governments had to actually pay to have the vaccines destroyed because they expired. So Big Pharma gets paid billions of dollars to manufacture something that then governments have to pay to destroy. This is the economic madness that stems from money printing. Government prints currency, uses it to pay off Big Pharma, big banks, and the military-industrial complex to manufacture things that benefit no one and that are ultimately just destroyed. This is a pretty good definition of our zombie economy right now. It's being propped up by disease, debt, and death. The 3 Ds: disease, debt, and death. And on the debt side, don't forget the U.S. is printing currency in order to pay the interest on the debt. And so the debt industry, of course, is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and you have all these finance people and hedge fund people in Wall Street making a living just by pushing debt around or repackaging debt or slicing and dicing it into new tranches of debt and then selling off the debt. Oh, look, it's a collateralized debt obligation, or it's a, what do they call it in The Big Short? It's a CDO of a CDO. Yeah, all kinds of shenanigans in the mortgage industry, in the lending industry, especially commercial real estate, is about to take a major bath right now. So the debt industry is just as corrupt, just as dangerous in essence as the disease industry or the death industry, but it's very, very lucrative. Because when there's free money floating around, it's kind of easy to stick your hand out and collect some of it, if you're on Wall Street. So, but when the era of free money ends, well then, the debt industry becomes the death industry because so many investors are leaping off tall buildings, It becomes a suicide cult or something. But I want you to understand that none of these 3 things would exist in a true free market. In a capitalistic free market where actual competition was required between corporations and businesses and ideas and so on. None of these 3 things exist based on merit. Disease, debt, and death. Big Pharma, big banks, and the military-industrial complex, they only exist because of government edicts, because the government props them up. And they do that so they can maintain control over you, the population, and also control over the world. And as part of this strategy, the Western governments are now actively working very hard to try to destroy Western nations. So, and I'll give you some examples here, but the United States government under Biden is actively trying to destroy the United States of America. That's because Barack Obama is the puppet master pulling the strings, and he has always sought to destroy America, by the way. But the same thing is true with the German government, a bunch of lunatics trying to destroy Germany and doing a pretty good job, by the way. The French government, the British government, and other European nations, the Irish government, the Dutch government, and so on. They're all trying to destroy their nations because, well, they are a suicide cult. And now, one of the things that's happening right now, and I'm reading this out of the Jerusalem Post, by the way, so jpost.com. An Israeli minister calls for widespread Palestinian emigration to the West. So this person named Bezalel Smotrich, he tells the world that it is their, quote, moral imperative to demonstrate compassion and help Gazans attain a more prosperous future. He's the finance minister of Israel. And he called on Palestinians to voluntarily immigrate to Western countries. Wow. He says, quote, I will welcome the initiative of voluntary relocation of Gazan Arabs to countries worldwide. Yeah, easy for him to say. This is the plan. That's why I mentioned this. This is part of the big plan, is to create a war with Gaza. I mean, this is Israel's plan. They ordered their own troops to stand down on October 7th. That's very clear now. They allowed the attack to happen, and then they started bombing Gaza. That has continued to this day, and they ordered Gazans to evacuate, and now they're saying, well, we need to push these Gazans out to the rest of the world. So if you're listening to this in America, I guess you're supposed to take in now like 1 million Palestinians. or if you're in the UK or other Western European countries or Australia, wherever, Canada, you're supposed to take in maybe hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that have been displaced. And Israel wants us to do that. I mean, this is insane. Maybe Israel should stop bombing them. Maybe Israel should stop treating Gaza as a concentration camp. I mean, how dare you bomb them, killing 11,000 plus Palestinians, tell them to evacuate, and then tell Western nations, oh, you should take all these people. You give them, housing and medicine and education. You pay for them. It's like, we, Israel, we bomb them, but then you pay to bring them in and house them. This is insane. What? So Israel can take over Gaza and pillage all of the natural gas, what is it, 1.5 trillion cubic feet of natural gas that has been located under Gaza, and all the billions of barrels of oil that are located there. So Israel gets all that, and then we're supposed to take Palestinian refugees, apparently by the millions, because Israel wants to steal their homes again. And then, of course, part of the plan is, you'll have these extra million, let's say, Palestinians in U.S. cities, while the U.S. is sending more weapons to Israel. In fact, I have a story on that from Bloomberg.com. Let me bring you the headline on that. Bloomberg, U.S. is quietly sending Israel more ammunition and missiles, supply shells for Apache gunships, bunker buster munitions. Arms arrive on a near daily basis, says the Defense Department. You see, as of late October, 36,000 rounds of 30-millimeter cannon ammunition, and 3,500 night vision devices were delivered to Israel. They've requested 57,000 155-millimeter high-explosive artillery shells, 20,000 rifles, 5,000 PVS-14 night vision devices, 3,000 handheld bunker buster munitions being supplied by U.S. Central Command, 400 120-millimeter mortars, and on and on and on. Okay, all this stuff that the U.S. is supplying to Israel, or that Israel is requesting. So then what happens when you put 1 million Palestinians in the United States, the country supplying weapons to Israel, the country that is blowing to bits the actual homes and hospitals and mosques of the Palestinian people? You're going to put them in the U.S., and then what's going to happen? Oh, well, right on cue is going to be domestic terrorism in the U.S. because some number of angry Palestinians will snap. Most of them will not do this. I want to be clear. Most people of all ethnicities are peaceful people, but there's always this radicalized element. And that's what they're trying to achieve, is to have like some number. Maybe it's only, 1 in 1,000 or something. But out of 1 million refugees in America, that's still 1,000 Palestinian terrorists. And 1,000 Palestinian terrorists can do some serious damage across the U.S., but that's exactly what the system wants, right? Because they profit from disease, debt, and death, right? So what do they need? They need more control. They need more of a police state. They need domestic terrorism in order to clamp down on the American people and have checkpoints, show us your papers, and have QR codes. You can't enter this grocery store unless you've been, ferreted out. You have to pass muster with the AI scanning system. Or, you're not allowed to buy ammunition anymore because terrorists might buy ammo. So we're going to have to crack down on ammo for everyone. Or, we had to ban, assault rifles, which is everybody's AR-15, which is a self-defense rifle. I couldn't function on my ranch without an AR-15 from time to time, by the way. You got to have an AR-15 on your ranch. But the government wants to take it all away. And what's the excuse they'll use? Oh, there were Palestinian terrorists. Well, why were there Palestinian terrorists? Because you blew up their homes and then you put them in America. What did you think was going to happen? For God's sake. But they're just constantly pushing this narrative. This is a giant psyop on a global scale to try to create more terrorism and more war. In fact, so much of what we were told about the original October 7th Hamas attack has turned out to be just lies. There was a good summary of this from a user on Twitter, Keith Wood YT. He says, what we now know about the October 7th Hamas attack, it wasn't 1,400 deaths of Israelis. That's been revised now down to 1,200. Okay, so no longer 1,400, and that's official. At least a third of those killed were Israeli military personnel, but the real number may be much higher. So it wasn't 1,400 civilians. It was 1,200 Israelis and, maybe 800 civilians, maybe 400 military personnel, or maybe 600 civilians. Anyway, it goes on. Many of the civilians were killed by the IDF firing on their own people. We've seen numerous reports come out recently and testimonies from people who survived it saying, yeah, that when the IDF showed up, they started shooting Israelis. I mean, hostages. So, in fact, this is called the Hannibal Doctrine under the IDF, where if an Israeli is taken hostage by Hamas, and if an IDF soldier has the ability to shoot and kill the hostage and the Hamas terrorists, they do that. They kill the hostage and the Hamas person. It's a well-known doctrine. And so the IDF came in and they just started blasting away at Israelis. And at this point, it could be that 300 or 400 of these Israelis were actually killed by the IDF. And then we also found that Israeli helicopters were firing on the vehicles being driven by Israeli citizens as they were fleeing that desert rave party. There's footage that has been released. I can't yet verify the footage, which is why I'm not going to show it to you here. But it appears to show Apache helicopters in the IDF launching rockets and blowing up civilian cars being driven by Israelis. And apparently what the pilots were told is that, well, there might be terrorists driving some of those cars, so just blow them all up. We can't let terrorists get loose. And plus, there's the Hannibal Doctrine, so just blow up all the cars. And that way, there won't be any more hostages. And that's what they did. The helicopters blew up as many vehicles as possible and shot people in the desert, and then went back and reloaded, rearmed up, took flight again, came back, and launched all their rockets again and blew up more cars and more people. And that's what the IDF did. So who knows how many of these 1,200 casualties were actually IDF self-inflicted casualties on Israelis. It's incredible. We've also found out there were no beheaded babies. There were no babies baked in ovens. That was all a lie. There weren't 40 babies that were decapitated. A total lie. And there's no evidence of mass rape. And even the mainstream media has backed away from that. They couldn't produce any forensic evidence of any claims of sexual assault by Hamas. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it certainly didn't happen on a scale that would leave behind a trail of evidence that would be convincing to anybody. And it seems like these Hamas fighters were there to kill IDF soldiers and take hostages and bring those hostages back into Gaza. And that's what they did for the most part. In fact, I want to play this video for you. It's 1:27 seconds and I'm going to read some of it for you. But this video, I think, really captures what a lot of people are coming to realize, that the world is being lied to by Israel about so many narratives here. But check out this video.
So in this particular house, 19 people were, I call it the example of what we're facing right now in Gaza.
And I'm going to read for you. These settler homes were destroyed by Israeli tanks and bombardment. They're lying to you. As desperation began to set in, the commanders in the field made difficult decisions, including shelling houses on their occupants in order to eliminate the terrorists along with the hostages. Orders came down from the Israeli military's high command to attack homes and other areas inside Israel, even at the cost of many settler lives. The damage caused to the houses could only come from Israeli tanks and Apache helicopters, which were both used on October 7th. Yasmin Porat, the kibbutz Be'eri survivor, told the radio that Israeli security forces undoubtedly killed a large number of their own civilians on October 7th. Israeli forces fired indiscriminately at both the fighters and their prisoners. They eliminated everyone, including the hostages. An Apache pilot admitted shooting at people in cars returning to Gaza. He knew that many of those vehicles may have contained captives, but he chose to open fire anyways. Then they used the footage of cars shot by the Apache, blaming Palestinian fighters for it. The monstrosity of Zionism knows no bounds. Its appetite is insatiable, devouring even its own. Share and expose the Israeli lies and the media that pushes it to the world. So there you go. That's what that video says. And I think there is a lot of evidence, even more evidence each day, supporting exactly what that video is pointing out. At this point, it could be that as many as half of the 1,200 dead Israelis were killed by the IDF. And out of that, the 600 that weren't killed by the IDF, possibly 300 or 400 were Israeli military, which means that we could be talking about maybe only 200 or 300 non-military civilians being killed. Not that that's an inconsequential number. I mean, every life matters. I've said that repeatedly. And the killing of Israeli civilians is a horrendous act, clearly an act of terrorism and a despicable act. But it seems like the vast majority of the targets by Hamas were, in fact, Israeli military, which means that this looks more and more like a military operation rather than something intended to be a terrorism act. It was a military operation to kill IDF soldiers and to take hostages in order to trade those hostages for the 5,000 to 6,000 Palestinian hostages that are currently being held by Israel in Israeli prisons without a trial. No due process whatsoever, no system of justice whatsoever. Israel is holding thousands of Palestinians and is refusing to release them. So Hamas has taken prisoners in order to carry out a swap, and that swap looks like it may begin soon. And then also consider the numbers here. If Hamas killed 200, 300, 400 Israeli civilians, but in response, Israel has killed more than 11,000 Palestinian civilians. And in fact, let me get the current claimed number of how many Palestinians have been killed. The current number is 11,300. And 40% of those are known to be children. So if 200, 300, even 400 Israeli civilians were murdered by Hamas, does that justify Israel bombing and just brutally slaughtering 11,300 Palestinians? That's the question that the world is facing right now. And more people are saying they've had enough of it. In fact, inside the White House and inside the State Department, this is big breaking news, there is a civil war brewing over this exact issue. Now, Axios did a big story on this. They obtained a memo. An internal State Department memo blasts Biden and U.S. policy on Israel-Hamas war. This, quote, scathing 5-page memo was organized by a junior diplomat who has suggested on social media that Biden's support of Israel has made him, quote, complicit in genocide. Again, this is coming from inside the State Department, folks. This memo was signed by 100 State Department and USAID employees, all right? 100 of them. And they're urging senior U.S. officials to reassess their policy toward Israel and to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. Some of the memo's language, writes Axios, echoes that of progressive activists in the U.S. whose anger and protests over Biden's handling of the war have rippled through the Democrat Party and created a new challenge for the president's 2024 campaign. Yeah, Biden has lost the Muslim vote. That's for sure. Biden has lost the Arab vote. Biden has lost the Persian vote. I mean, Biden has lost the vote of, all of the global South, I guess, or people associated with the global South who are living in the U.S. So the memo demands that, quote, we strongly recommend the U.S. government advocate for the release of hostages by both Hamas and Israel, citing the thousands of Palestinians being held in Israel, including those held without charge, which is something that I just mentioned. And that's the thing. I mean, how can Israel hold 5,000 to 6,000 prisoners without charging them, without without trial, just indefinite detention in essentially a prison camp. And these are prisons inside Israel where many Palestinians are tortured, by the way. That's well known over the years. So we now have a civil war inside the State Department and inside the White House where the Democrat base that, agreed with Biden on lots of other things like, baby murder, abortion. They had no problem killing babies when they were black babies in abortion centers and, inner city abortion centers in America. The Democrats had no problem with that, but they do have a problem with bombing brown babies in Gaza. And the reason I'm saying that kind of satirically is because it's completely insane. Why can't you just say it's wrong to murder all babies? That's what I believe. It's wrong to murder black babies, brown babies, white babies, Asian babies. Like, killing babies is always wrong. But that position is held by almost no one. I even did a podcast on this. In fact, you might want to give it a listen. It's on my channel on Brighteon.com. It's entitled Genocide Hypocrites. 99% of people actually support genocide in one form or another. And what I discovered, to my horror, is that almost everybody will gladly support genocide if it's framed correctly. For example, Democrats support the mass murder of black babies, late-term black babies, right before they're born or even right after they're born. They support that. Whereas a lot of Christian conservatives in America support the genocide of Palestinian children right now. And then there's all kinds of people in the science and medical profession that support vaccine genocide. Mass murder via vaccine bioweapons. They totally support that. And as someone who has fought to protect human life and human health through my entire career here as the Health Ranger, which is 20 years plus at this point, I've always said that every life has value and that we must protect the lives of children, of people of different colors, different religions, different genders, whatever. We have to help protect life. And that's why I focus so much on nutrition and health and so on, because I believe that life has value. I believe that we are created in the image of God and that God gave us the gift of life and the gift of consciousness, free will. Free will, the right to make mistakes and also to do amazing things. But these are gifts that have been given to us. And the best way we can honor those gifts is to protect all the other lives that have also received those gifts. And that's why I'm opposed to genocide in all forms. And my opposition of genocide crosses all party lines. I mean, it just obliterates party lines. I don't align with the Democrats, the Republicans. I mean, the GOP is infuriating. I can't stand the GOP establishment. I also can't stand the DNC. It's all the same corrupt UNIPARTY, like I mentioned earlier. And all they believe in is disease, debt, and death. And so if we believe in, well, let's take the opposite of disease, debt, and death. What would that be? It would be health, abundance, and life, right? Health, abundance, and life. If we believe in health, abundance, and life, then we must take steps to protect our health and to protect our abundance, which can include financial assets. And that's where gold and silver come into the picture, obviously. And we must protect life. And that means stop the bombing, stop the abortions, stop the vaccine genocide, stop the mass medication of children with psychiatric drugs. Health, abundance, and life. That's what I believe in. That's probably a lot of what you believe in. But health, abundance, and life do not generate profits for the corporations. And therefore, there's nobody in the UNIPARTY that's being handed a bunch of money to promote health or abundance or life. No, it's disease, debt, and death all day long. That's all they stand for. Lindsey Graham, no limit Lindsey. Disease, debt, and death. He's a champion of that. The late John McCain. He was like Mr. Disease, Debt, and Death, all wrapped up in one scary package, like lizard package or something. Crazy, reptilian package. Disease, debt, and death is all they believe in. So we have to promote health, abundance, and life. And that's what I do. And that's why this new docuseries that's starting this Saturday is such a big deal. And that's why today's interview is with Jonathan Otto, the creator of that. Remember, it's called Disease in Reverse. How do you reverse disease? Well, you're going to learn how with breakthrough therapies, natural therapies, and some of them cost nothing, literally nothing. By the way, you'll learn, you'll see. Sign up for that right now. Brighteon University, which is brighteon.com. You'll be able to watch the whole thing for free. You could also optionally, of course, purchase the entire download with bonus items. You get the files, the video files, and all the bonus items. And that does help support our platform. And it also helps support Jonathan Otto's work as well so that he can fund additional documentary efforts. But that purchase is optional. You don't have to purchase anything. You can watch the whole thing for free. Just go to, again, brighteon.com. Now, hey, by the way, something really cool happened this last weekend. I was in North Austin, and I was driving by this area. Well, it's actually in Round Rock, as it's called, but I just consider it North Austin. I was driving by this area, and I saw this sign, just a little sign right by the road. It said, "Clean juice is available now." I'm like, clean juice? That sounds like a party made for me. I like clean juice, I like organic. I do lab testing of foods, and I'm into nutrition. I would love to have some clean juice right now. So I pull in, and it's in this I don't know, shopping center area in Round Rock. And I walk in, and a wonderful man right there at the door greets me. "Hey, how you doing today?" "I'm doing great. I saw your sign. It said clean juice. I'm here. This is awesome. What do you got?" And he proceeds to tell me, it turns out he and his wife own the place, and he's a veteran, and this was their opening day. This was their opening day. Like, this was day one. And I walk in, and I'm like, I want some juice. This is awesome. So I decided, my wife and I bought some juice. We got some super delicious stuff there. I also got it was like a fall pumpkin. I don't know what it was. It was like a pumpkin smoothie on top of the juice. And then we got some of their bottled cashew milk, which was super awesome as well. And I loved it so much that I asked them if they would do an interview. And the wife of this man, her name is Nicole, she said, yes, she would love to do an interview. So I'd like to play for you here. It's only like 5 minutes or something. My interview with Nicole. She and her husband have opened up this place again called Clean Juice, which is at cleanjuice.com. And they are a faith-based USDA organic, certified organic ingredients almost exclusively throughout. And Tim Tebow is one of their brand ambassadors, by the way, the football player who famously prayed after victories and took a lot of criticism for praying. How crazy is that? But again, a faith-based, certified organic, clean juice company. And they've got hundreds. I didn't even know this. They have hundreds of these franchises across the country, and they're opening more all the time. So check it out, cleanjuice.com. Check out this interview with Nicole. She and her husband just opened this in Round Rock, Texas. All right, hi everybody. We're here with Nicole at Clean Juice in North Austin, Texas. Just opened today. Hi Nicole, how you doing?
Hi, how is everyone doing?
Tell us about Clean Juice, because I love this concept.
Yes, so Clean Juice is the first and only USDA certified organic juice bar in the United States. We are a franchise and we have over 100 locations throughout the US. We are one of two in the Austin area, so we are in Round Rock, Texas.
Wow. So why is Clean Juice or USDA certified organic important to you?
So it's important to me because what you see is what you get. An apple is an apple, a banana is a banana. There's no added preservatives or anything in there. The only sweeteners that we do use are date paste, honey, maple syrup, and agave. So you're getting clean ingredients in you, which is super important to be able to nourish your body.
And I see that you have like all your ingredients are on display here. So people can see.
It's completely, yes. We want to be completely transparent with our guests so you can actually see what's going into your product while we're making it, and we're being completely upfront with you.
do you have difficulties sourcing the organic ingredients? Because it's not always easy.
Yes, there is sometimes difficulties naturally with the supply chain because you want to be able to get with a trusted supplier. And with that being said, we do have those, but just like anything else that's going on right now, there are supply chain problems that we do have. And when we do have that, because Clean Juice is strictly transparent, we will put on our transparency board if we have a supply chain issue what of our ingredients are not organic.
I took a picture of that. Is it okay if I just show your menu here a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to give people a little view. There's the menu. There's the people making the smoothies. Sorry about all the background noise, but this is an active operation here.
Yes.
Now, is there something about your background or your life experience that made you passionate about organic and clean food or nutrition in general?
Yes. Well, I just hit 50 in October, so it's super important for me.
You look great for 50.
Oh,
Can I say that?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But we really want to be able. We'll meet you where you're at. We want to be a pillar of the community where whether you're working out in a gym rat, you have Clean Juice to come to. If you're trying to change your lifestyle, you have Clean Juice to come to. And for me personally, I want to be able to be here as long as possible. And the best way to do that is what I'm putting in my body. I know we have our difficulties sometimes. Sometimes we have good days, sometimes we have bad days, but having a quick service premium product available to everyone is what is most important to me.
And has this brought up a lot of conversations with customers about, pesticides and herbicides or other toxins that might be found in the conventional food supply?
I think one of the biggest things that people when they do come in, they're more surprised in the transparency that Clean Juice provides in our products. But yes, when it comes to like the pesticides, there's a lot of things that people didn't know that they actually know now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes.
Give people, if you would, and sort of how they can find you in, North Austin, I'm calling it, but I guess technically it's Round Rock?
It's Round Rock,
okay.
yes.
So where do people find you?
So we are at the Crossing Point Shopping Center, right off of South I-35 Frontage Road. We are at, the full address is 2800 South I-35 Frontage Road. We are Suite 315. You can see us right off of 35 and 45, but don't do that if you're driving. You'll get into an accident.
And is there a website people can find you
yes.
at?
www.cleanjuice.com/round-rock.
Round-rock.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, and then, and also this is your opening day.
Yes, this is our grand opening day. Yesterday was soft opening, and today is our actual grand opening, which is also Veterans Day. So make sure if you're a veteran, you can come in and get 50% off of smoothies today.
Oh, wow. And how has the business been today on opening day?
Round Rock and the surrounding areas has truly showed up for us because it has been a grueling process, and anyone that's built a brick and mortar understands that, but they have stuck with us throughout the process, and they really showed up for us, and we are so appreciative of it.
Well, I am thrilled that you're here.
Thank you.
And we're thrilled to find you.
It.
I was literally driving by, I saw a sign that said Clean Juice.
Yes.
I said, oh my gosh, that's speaking to me. I got to stop.
Yes, and like I said, clean juice, clean ingredients, nourishing your body, organic, good for you. Come see us.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
I tell you what, if I wasn't so busy doing what I do and running my lab and running the Health Ranger store, I would probably open a Clean Juice franchise or something because it's such a great concept. Clean, nutritious food and delicious juices, and they have all kinds of other things as well. It's not just juice and smoothies. But I hope you enjoyed that interview. I really had a great time. And Nicole there was kind enough to do an impromptu interview with me right there on the spot with no preparation or anything. So if you're in North Austin, check out Clean Juice. Now, getting back to the main theme here, remember, the opposite of disease, debt, and death is health, abundance, and life. And every single thing that I do every day in articles or podcasts or interviews is about protecting health, abundance, and life. Obviously, health with my interviews on nutrition and alternative medicine, natural medicine, herbal medicine, all of that, and all the formulations that we sell at healthrangerstore.com, all designed to protect and enhance your health. abundance. This is where I partner with, for example, our gold sponsor or people who are into honest assets, things that hold value. And also where I interview people like Andy Sheckman, for example, from Miles Franklin, telling us about what's going to happen to the dollar as it is dethroned from its current position as the world reserve currency. If you want to have abundance, you have to beat the system. The system is designed to make you poor. The system is designed to make you die broke. And if you play in their system, i.e., you just keep holding dollars and you keep working as a W-2 worker and paying taxes and then putting the rest in the stock market or in a savings account or in treasury bills, you're going to lose, man. You're going to lose every day. It's designed that way. If you want to get ahead, you have to exit that system, which is why I launched that new show, Decentralize TV. And the website for that is decentralize.tv. And different ways to exit the system include private crypto, for example. Bitcoin is doing very well right now. Monero is doing really well. Monero is, I would favor that over Bitcoin personally because of the privacy aspects of it. But Firo and other privacy coins are also, I think, going to hold value quite well. Whereas the banking system is going to crater. The dollar is going to crater. Gold and silver will also hold their value overall, even though there's a lot of manipulation from time to time. They will tend to hold value, as will land and ammunition and things like that. So all the experts that I interview about financial issues, that's about abundance. And I know abundance is more than just finances, but that's the way most people think about their security, to have a roof over your head, to know that you can pay for medical care if you need it, to know that you can live in a safe place. It's going to cost money. And so being able to protect your assets is, in a lot of people's minds, it's equivalent to many types of abundance. And then the third one here is life. And protecting life means more than just stopping abortions. Protecting life also means, of course, your spiritual life, having a relationship with the Creator, and understanding that you were created, that you were given the gift of life, fully recognizing with humility what a precious gift that is. And this is why I interview people that talk about how to protect life and why we should stop bombing civilians, for example, why we should reform the justice system so that innocent people aren't thrown in prison, but why we also need police on the streets so that we don't have innocent victims of violent crime. I'm opposed to the anti-police movement, obviously. The defunding of the police has created many innocent victims who otherwise would not have been attacked or mugged or raped or what have you. So when I say protect life, I'm also talking about your personal protection, which is why I'm pro-Second Amendment. We all have the right to defend ourselves against imminent violence being committed against us. But I'm also saying let's protect the lives of children, and let's protect especially pregnant women against these vaccine jabs. Let's tell the truth about the toxic vaccines so that we can protect children from the risk of autism associated with vaccines, which is getting worse and worse, obviously, as the vaccine schedule keeps increasing. So when I talk about protecting life, it's about all of those things and more. Now, the big picture of what I want you to take away from today's broadcast here is that there is nobody in your government that has any incentive to protect your health, your abundance, or your life. And yet nearly everybody in government wants to push disease, debt, and death because that's what gets them campaign contributions. That's what gets them elected, and that's what gives them power over you, is all the different crises associated with disease, debt, and death. Oh, we have a pandemic. We've got to take away your rights. Oh, we have a financial crisis. We've got to take away your bank accounts. Oh, we have a war. We got to take away, your Constitution and your guns or whatever. They need emergencies in order to achieve disease, debt, and death. You and I want health, abundance, and life. And I assure you, the only way you're ever going to achieve any one of those three, much less all three, is to stop following your government so-called leaders who are leading you down the path of disease, debt, and death. If you want health, that's going to be a personal choice and a personal journey. You're going to have to discover that on your own. If you want health, your traditional doctor is not going to help you, typically. Not unless they're educated in, nutrition and complementary medicine and things like that. And some of them are. But just your mainstream, pill-pushing, big pharma whore doctor, they're not going to help you achieve health at all. They're just going to get you on more prescriptions. So they can write more scripts and they can go attend, their drug rep parties and maybe bang a couple of young drug reps or whatever they do at those parties. Yeah, seriously, there's some shenanigans going on in the pharmaceutical industry, that's for sure. But your doctor is not your friend when it comes to health. And then for abundance, your banker is not your friend when it comes to abundance. Your banker wants you to put money in their bank so that they control it and you don't have custody of it. And then when it all hits the fan, they're going to do a big bank bail-in, which means, hey, all your money is now our money. Too bad. That's exactly what that means. And they have the right to do that. You just become a creditor to the bank. So if you want abundance, you've got to take that journey on your own. You've got to have self-custody. Remember that term, self-custody of your assets. Assets in your hands, assets that you control, which can include crypto or gold and silver or land, all these things that I keep mentioning over and over again. Self-custody matters. You can even have a little bit of cash in your self-custody. I mean, who was the senator that just got charged with a bunch of crimes, a Democrat senator? Now I forgot his name. He had, what did he have, like $400,000 in cash sitting around in his safe? He had, was it Menendez, I think? He had a lot of cash. And he said, hey, it's all legal. It's my own cash. And do you remember the excuse that he said? Like, why do you have so much cash sitting around? He said, well, my family came from Cuba, and in Cuba, there's a history of governments confiscating people's cash out of the banks. So that's why I'm holding cash. So in other words, a United States senator doesn't trust the U.S. banking system enough to put his own cash in the bank. He's got stacks of cash at home in self-custody. Why is that? I mean, yeah, he's probably a crook, but at least he understands the importance of self-custody. And he also had gold, by the way. He had gold bars and cash. I mean, this guy's a prepper. He knows how the system works. Again, he's probably a crook. But he's not a stupid crook. He's a crook who's actually taken precautions to off-bank his assets into his self-custody control. And then finally, on the issue of life, once again, there is no government official that's going to protect your life. They don't give a hoot about you. If you want to protect your life or your livelihood, that's a personal journey that you're going to have to take. And I don't mean just self-defense, Second Amendment, like carry a pistol, although that's part of it. But I'm talking about protecting your livelihood, protecting your family, protecting your career, protecting your community. This is a personal choice. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to organize at the local level and build community. And you're going to have to invest in yourself by learning and sometimes teaching and sharing information with the people around you to protect your life. And part of this is being a prepper. Part of this is survival training and having backup supplies of communications and medicine and money systems and shelter and also firearms and all these things that matter. But understand, of all these three topics, health, abundance, and life, your government is at war with all three. Think about it. Whether you're listening from Canada or the US or Australia, New Zealand, London, wherever, your government is at war with your health. They want to destroy your health. And that's why they pushed the pandemic, and that's why they pushed the vaccines, and that's why they conspired to deprive you of access to ivermectin. They're at war with your abundance. They steal from you every day by printing more currency, which is looting the value of your currency. And then they're also at war with your life. They don't want you to live past retirement age. Their entitlement systems are bankrupt. Their pensions are bankrupt. The only way that these governments, these Western governments, can ever balance the books is by killing off people who are collecting pensions and Medicare and Social Security. Enter the vaccine, right? It kills off a lot of elderly people, and suddenly, they've got a little bit more runway on debt printing and debt spending, and that's one of the reasons why that happened. So your government is at war with everything that actually matters in your life. Your health, your abundance, your life, even your faith, your family, your community, your assets, your freedom to speak, all of these things that matter. Your government is at war with you. And that's because, again, the government's push disease, debt, and death, the trifecta of the corporate-controlled UNIPARTY. It doesn't even matter what party they're in at this point. It doesn't matter at all. It's all the same. So the bottom line, we all need to stop looking at the next election as if it's going to save us. It isn't. Or the next candidate as if he or she is going to save us. They're not. The system is deeply embedded in disease, debt, and death. And that system cannot be salvaged. It can't be reformed. Not from the inside, not from the outside. Doesn't matter really who gets elected in the next election so much because the whole damn system is going to collapse anyway. The dollar is going to collapse. Big Pharma will collapse when the dollar collapses, by the way, because where does Big Pharma get most of its money? Government. When government can't print money and pay off Big Pharma or pay off the weapons industry, well, then the war industry collapses as well. In fact, the collapse of the dollar may be one of the most positive events that will ever happen in our lifetimes. And I don't mean in the short term. I mean, it'll be chaotic in the short term. People will lose a lot of money, especially those who don't know what's about to happen to them. But in the medium term, ending the dollar will end so much evil that is pushed from the dollar, such as the disease industry, Big Pharma, like I said, or the death industry, the war industry, or the propaganda industry. You realize that when the U.S. government can no longer just print money and hand it out and pay everybody off and bribe everybody, you realize that about half of the trolls on Twitter are going to vanish because they're government-paid trolls that work for the CDC or some of them work for Big Pharma. They're all going to vanish. The world will become a lot more civil when the U.S. dollar can no longer fund the propaganda and lies that now characterize our modern society. And think about it. When the dollar stops, well, so does all the research on the bioweapons that's carried out by DARPA and the DOD. They're building more bioweapons all the time. Well, if they can't fund it, they can't build it. So ending the dollar ends crimes against humanity, if you think about it. It does. The end of the dollar means the end of the war machine. And the end of the dollar means the end of the government that colludes with big tech to censor voices that they don't like, voices of truth, voices of reason. You probably experienced some of that yourself. So don't panic over the end of the dollar. Prepare for it and understand it may be one of the most important positive events that happens in our lifetime. And again, it doesn't matter which party is elected at the next election because all they are is just deciding, who's got the megaphone on the deck of the sinking Titanic. It doesn't matter. The Titanic is going down. We need to prepare ourselves for that moment and try to help as many people as we can, and then work to build a better society on the other side of this collapse. And as this happens, I will, of course, make my opinions known about what kind of society we need to create together, and it's got to be a meritocracy. It's got to be based on merit. We got to end all this transgenderism nonsense and all this drugging nonsense. The FDA has got to go. The FBI, the DOJ. I mean, we're not even talking about reforms here. We're talking about wholesale collapse, and we're going to have to rebuild from scratch. How does society function? What is health freedom? What does a new constitution look like? We must protect the right to speak. We must protect the right to say no to forced medical interventions, for God's sake. We have to protect health freedom. We have to protect access to natural medicine and nutritional cures or treatments. And we have to stop the revolving door collusion between big pharma and big government, including the regulators like the FDA or the CDC. That's got to stop. And as we're doing this, of course, there's probably about 100,000 current employees who should face some kind of criminal charges brought against them for their collusion in these crimes against humanity that have been carried out over the last several years alone right here in America. They need to be prosecuted by the court system for their crimes. And I guess thanks to Twitter, it's going to be hard for them to try to erase their history of all their crimes because they basically tweeted all their crimes. So we'll see where all that goes. There's a big day coming. Let me tell you, the future will not look like the past. It won't even resemble it. So thank you for your support, and understand that every day what I do here is in one way or another designed to enhance and protect your health, your abundance, and your life against governments, corporations, and institutions that are pushing nothing but disease, debt, and death. That's the contrast that you need to keep in mind every day. All right, with that said, in fact, we're going to bring you now the interview with Jonathan Otto, who has this new docuseries called Disease in Reverse. It begins this Saturday, and you'll find out about it right here in this interview. In the meantime, if you want to support us, shop at healthrangerstore.com. We've got certified organic lab-tested foods, Ranger buckets, we have mega buckets and mini buckets. We also have freeze-dried blueberries in number 10 cans and many other fruits and vegetables as well. All available in stock right now. So if any of that appeals to you, you want to get your food supply squared away and you want it to be clean food, we're your source. healthrangerstore.com. All right, with that said, enjoy this interview with Jonathan Otto. Welcome to today's interview on Brighteon.com. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon, and today we're joined by Jonathan Otto, who's the producer of a really astonishing and informative new docu-series called Disease in Reverse, which premieres November 18th, which is a Saturday, on Brighteon University or brighteon.com, where you'll be able to watch the entire series for free with registration. And here to tell us about that series and what you'll learn in it is Jonathan Otto. Welcome, Jonathan. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. It's been a while since we've spoken, a few months at least. And it's just great to see you again. Great to hear your voice again. You've been busy. You've been doing a lot of work, helping people gain knowledge for healing. So tell us, just start out with the big bang here. Like what are the big takeaways from this docuseries called Disease in Reverse?
Wow. Well, Mike, it's such an eye-opening experience to realize that the causes of disease are not what we always thought. And there were so many things that were such an enigma. For example, you would think that disease is just genetic, for example, and that you just get a disease because it's in your family or there's some predisposition. But then what it turns out is that just like what we just saw over the last few years, we saw the existence of actual biological weapons being used on us. And then we saw conditions as a result of that were so broad, whether it was Guillain-Barré syndrome or multiple sclerosis or cancer and these turbo cancers and all the whole spectrum of autoimmune diseases and neurological symptoms. We saw all these massive outbreaks in the last few years. And then it so turns out that this is not a new thing. This has been happening for a long time. And by understanding the mechanism, then we're able to solve the problem. And that's what's the beautiful part, because if it was just about us saying, oh, look at the doom and gloom, look at all the things that they're doing to us, and then we'd be in a state of powerlessness. And that's not what I'm leading people to. That's not what I stand for. What I stand for people is to get people the results and to see people get healed and see them put their disease into reverse. So Disease in Reverse is just like the name entails. We're showing real life case studies, and we'll chat about that. We'll show the real life examples of people reversing the most debilitating conditions and symptoms, whether it was autoimmune disease, whether it's cancer, whether it's vaccine injuries from both the COVID shots or other vaccines, and long COVID, the whole spectrum of disease. And we'll show that there is a common thread in the causality, in the mechanism of action for these diseases. And when you understand this mechanism, then you have so much power. And we've seen this happen in so many scenarios now. We've seen people with all different types of conditions, and they're responding to the same therapies as if it was like the same condition, as if all the factors were the same, and they're healing systemically.
Jonathan, let me jump in. I love what you just said,
please.
But I want to provide a basis for the audience to understand that, Western medicine likes to take a set of symptoms, such as symptoms of, blood sugar fluctuations, and they like to give it a name, and they'll call it, let's say, type 2 diabetes. And then the doctor will tell the patient, you have type 2 diabetes, even though it's just a name, it's just a label. But they speak to the patient as if this is an infection, like a germ or a parasite has taken over your body and you now have type 2 diabetes. And the patient will use that same language themselves. They'll say, well, I have type 2 diabetes. When actually, as I would describe it, their body is currently displaying a set of symptoms or observations that are labeled type 2 diabetes. And if you change your physiology, those symptoms disappear and you no longer display the symptoms labeled type 2 diabetes. Therefore, you no longer have type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's common sense. It's straightforward. But the medical establishment says that's not possible. They say that once you are diagnosed with something, you can never get rid of it. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. Exactly. I mean, it's such a sell point. It puts you on drugs forever. But I think you explained it perfectly. I think that this essence of the diagnosis, which is very much a nebulous word. I mean, it's where is all the words belong here? For example, if it's DI, and agnostic, if the separation is there, that would be agnostic. I don't know if I believe in God. I don't know anything. I don't know. And divide, two people don't know, right? It's even in the word, but you could say, no, it's gnostic, which is knowledge. But it's kind of there in plain sight in my view, where it really is this lack of knowledge. It's just symptoms. And I think that what people really need to look at is the common threads, the causes. One of the studies that was fascinating for me as well was seeing how cobra toxins were actually responsible for gliomas, as an example. And that's something that I didn't think of. I didn't think that a cobra toxin, a cone snail venom, could be triggering, in this case, a glioma, the most aggressive type of brain tumor that you could die. Typically, people die in around 8 months from this. And I didn't realize that animal venoms were like significant triggers, and so much so that they do these in animal studies. They just turn on tumors in a matter of days. Like as little as 72 hours, they'll turn on a tumor, an aggressive, life-threatening tumor in a mouse model, murine models, and then they'll switch it off in 72 hours, or largely switch it off. Like in one study, it was nicotine applied, then dropped the tumor growth by more than 2 times in just 72 hours. Isn't that strange? And that they're trying then through these studies, to find models so that they can create a drug that mimics the effect of nicotine, because it binds to the same receptors that those venoms bind to, which are called alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. And that's really relevant. You'd say, yeah, but that's just a model where venom is the primary cause of that glioma. That's not necessarily a common cause of gliomas. And I'm going to tell you it is the most common cause of gliomas. And the reason why I'm saying that is simply because animal venoms, synthetic animal venoms, are so prolific through our medical field, vaccines in general, let alone the COVID vaccine, in terms of the messenger RNA, the plasmid technology, and how it's causing the body to act as its own generating substance, whether it's E. coli, yeast, or mammalian cells, that they're converting these substances into venom peptides. And this is proven. This is something that we can show the models for and how this works. And this is why people, for example, with COVID test positive. Carlo Brogna's study published on PubMed, you can see it there, showed 36 different types of animal venoms in COVID-19 patients, and 0 in those who were COVID negative. So once you find the presence of these in people, you find that glyphosate actually is a venom-based pesticide. And venoms, whether it's did you know that?
Hold on, Jonathan. Let me stop you there and actually add to what you're saying, because this is really critical. A lot of people watching this might be thinking, what are you talking about? Venoms in, herbicides or venoms in medicine. I have on my screen right now a company called Venom Tech. And I've done articles about this, but here's a company. This is one of many. There are a whole series of companies. Venom Tech, they are out of the UK. They serve drug discovery, cosmetics, crop protection, which means pesticides and herbicides. And if you go in here on their resources, here it is, Venom Select. Right here, you can go in and they have online engines. You can have cosmetic active ingredients, all based on venoms. And these are cobra venoms and snake venoms and cone snail venoms and like lizard venoms. I mean, it's incredible. Most people had no idea about any of this before COVID. So I just want to, throw this out there to add to what you're saying, Jonathan. You're not making this up. This is actually a core pillar of modern pharmaceutical, cosmetics, and pesticide industries.
Exactly. No, you understand it, and it's actually very relieving that you understand that, because when I'm explaining this to people, it's the first time they've heard it, and they're just kind of treating it a little bit skeptically. The problem is that unless you can just fully embrace it, this is so prolific, you can't explain disease. And it's right there in front of your face. For example, look at the medical symbol. I mean, what is it, Mike?
Yeah,
it's
snake, serpents around a staff. It's in the shape of a helix, a double helix DNA, which means that you use venom to alter DNA.
And yes, exactly. And it's a story. It's an allegory in front of your face. And the allegory is actually from the cult of Asclepius, a Greek cult, a Greek mythology serpent cult that is referenced on the World Health Organization's website, that said that this is what the symbol means. And the Greek kind of demigod, which is named Asclepius, would actually get people bitten by serpents and then heal them in exchange for money. And then for doing that, he was banished to the underworld by Zeus and became basically the Grim Reaper. That's an eerie story that's completely built in as an allegory. Like, it's a silly, fictitious story, but it has a meaning, and that is, we poison you and you pay for that solution that we bring to you. And we are the poisoners. And what is the best poison? It's the symbol itself. It's a snake. It's a snail. It's the species that have developed venom so prolific that they can take down organisms much bigger than themselves. They're limbless creatures. They can't even often run. They don't have teeth. They have to paralyze their prey, and they use these mechanisms. So the study of toxicology would naturally then reference venomics, which is the study of venom, and then use those toxic compounds, these fragments. Those toxic components are then what gets added to medications and then put in our food supplies. And then that's how we're all getting sick.
As is what you're referring to, venom peptides.
Exactly.
And I just want to reiterate to people who are finding this difficult to believe that, venoms, how do venoms work in nature? When a snake bites a mouse and injects the venom, first of all, it's a hypodermic injection, right? So it's like a nature's needle, the fangs in the snake, right? So it's injected in the body. Some venoms cause the blood to clot. Some venoms cause massive vascular inflammation. Other venoms cause the blood to run, to flow, where you bleed out internally. And for example, Coumadin, which is a common prescription drug given to people. Coumadin also functions as, of course, rat poison. You know this, Jonathan. And there are other venoms that work on the nerve system that cause a shutdown of the nervous system. And there's even a technology called RNA interference technology that can be used in transgenic crops, so that when insects eat the crops, their nervous system breaks down and they fail to function. Basically, it gives insects instant Alzheimer's. And then people are eating these crops. And then you wonder, why is everybody losing their minds? Why is there dementia? Why is there Alzheimer's? Why is our president an Alzheimer's patient? I mean, people, you're eating venom peptides everywhere. So go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's amazing. No, I'm so glad that you said that, because now it's going to make so much sense of what we're about to explain. Awesome. So alpha conotoxins and alpha cobrotoxins promote, and here's some inhibitors, and here are the factors here that are suppressing and turning on the proliferation of glioma C6 cells. And so they're trying to find things that are going to work. So they have to make an animal model. And so they're using, in this case, cobrotoxins and conotoxins to proliferate, to promote the proliferation, the growth, the multiplication of glioma C6 cells. And then they're looking for things that will suppress it. And so now in this model, this is such an important image. Everyone needs to remember this image. And now this is going to relate as we go over to Parkinson's disease and other case studies. In this model, you can see that there's 3 images. One is 24 hours, the other is, and I'm going to zoom into this email. This is going to make it a little easier here. Look at the control where you've got nothing added, 24 hours, 72 hours. 48 hours and 72 hours. The control, look at how many tumors now filling that slide, and this is in vivo. And then you've got now nicotine added, and in this you've got more than, if you look at that visually, you're looking at, I think, between a 3 or 4 times drop in the tumor growth between the images. In the text it says more than 2 times. So they're saying more than 2 times. I'm saying probably more than 3. But the point is, nicotine is having a function here of competing for a receptor and switching off the proliferation of a tumor growth. And now this makes sense. One, why, firstly, this should be looked at as a key therapeutic. It makes sense why we're seeing studies on the use of venom and anti-venom approaches, which is very much, this is an anti-venom approach. If you look at Parkinson's disease, if you look at studies like the study around I'll just pull it up here.
Hold on a second. Jonathan, I just also want to clarify, you're not advocating that people take up smoking. You're talking about nicotine, it can be done transdermally, it can be done orally.
Exactly.
Not smoking.
100% not smoking. Why? Because if you smoke a cigarette, even if it was organic tobacco, you would be combusting, which would then take if you're smoking a regular cigarette, you've got a few hundred, around 600 chemicals there already. When you smoke it, it turns into 6,000 to 7,000 chemicals, 70 of which are carcinogenic, proven to be carcinogenic. Even if you're using organic tobacco and smoking it with no additives, you're still getting 6,000 chemicals. So no, I don't think anyone should ever smoke unless they're in an emergency where there's nothing else available and they are having respiratory arrest, because you can through nicotine. But even still, if I had that, I would actually make a tea out of it myself so I wouldn't get the combustion of that cigarette smoke.
No, I bought nicotine gum to have on the shelf in case there's another, pandemic that nicotine might take up the receptor sites. I actually have nicotine gum on the shelf, even though I don't smoke, and I've never chewed any of that gum because I'm not running on nicotine. I have it in my emergency medical kit,
Exactly, which is awesome. But there are many reasons why people can consider those if they have a toxic infection. For example, you can look up studies and find all of these published studies on Parkinson's disease with nicotine, showing you can see studies with viral myocarditis in a 2-week period in mouse models and murine models, where the nicotine is basically, in layman's terms, putting that myocarditis into remission, basically reversing the condition in such a short period of time. Viral myocarditis, which is myocarditis, is the same thing. And it does prove that what myocarditis actually is an effect of what happens when venom binds to the alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptors in the heart. Same is true with the kidneys, and that's why we're having such a rise in type 1 diabetes, is just one example. The colon is also filled with these alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. It is a breeding ground for those toxins, and so we need to then get these sources into us so that we can then release these poisons. So studies on Tourette syndrome, 8 weeks, 7 milligram patches, massive reduction in Tourette's syndrome symptoms.
That's amazing.
Isn't it amazing? Tinnitus, which is so common, I've seen cases, it's validated in PubMed studies that you can go look up yourself, where nicotine will actually put tinnitus into remission, including low hearing. And that's just a few. I just targeted there gliomas, Parkinson's disease, and then over to the Tourette's and low hearing and tinnitus. And so just start thinking about the broad array of symptoms and don't just denote it to the ones I mentioned. And even I've got some mutual friends.
I'm thinking, sorry to interrupt, Jonathan, but I'm thinking this is also why the FDA is waging a war on vaping, because vaping can be, at least under the proper supervision of, let's say, a naturopathic physician, vaping can be therapeutic depending on what you're vaping. I mean, you can vape CBDs, for example, cannabinoids, that can have therapeutic effects. You can vape nicotine that can have therapeutic effects. And the FDA, we used to be told they were at war with tobacco because you were combusting it and smoking it. As you said, the smoke, carcinogens are created and so on, and it is linked to heart disease and lung cancer and so on. But what if you're not combusting it? You're using it as a way to take in a molecule and to introduce it to the blood supply. There's vaping, there's transdermal, there's oral, there's rectal. I mean, there's lots of different ways to get things into your blood supply, and the FDA is at war with anything that works, it seems. What would you say about that?
Exactly. They want to take away these sources. There's no shock that Fauci would come out and say during the pandemic, there's never been a better time to give up smoking, right? So when you got...
Right, and to give up ivermectin,
World Health Organization.
He'd probably mention that.
Exactly. suddenly he's looking out for your health. There's never been a better time to give up smoking. He's urging people to give up smoking then. I would still urge people then to give up smoking, but certainly not to give up their use of nicotine. What had happened was that then people then were getting these massive rates of COVID as soon as they would give up smoking. But those that were smoking were actually protected in large capacities, in that they accounted for less than 5% in the United States of hospitalized cases, which doesn't make sense if it was a lung disease or a lung virus.
Right.
And so these were some of the things that we started to uncover and realize, wow, there is actual real life case studies, and we can see that certain conditions can be put into remission. The cases I mentioned are really critical ones for people to look into. And we started then to find that there was so much more that was happening. And this mechanism of looking at the envenomation, if we started to treat basically all disease as an issue of dysregulation that was happening because of toxins and poisons that were designed to dysregulate you in such exponential ways and bind to receptors that would actually create such confusion in your body, not just only making you copper deficient, zinc deficient, also making you deficient in sodium, potassium, calcium. And by doing these, this is how they could create the heart attacks and do all these different things. And this is why shellfish venom was used for a heart attack gun.
These venoms also alter the cell membrane permeability of those minerals and electrolytes that you just mentioned, right? So even if you're eating enough potassium, let's say, if you're exposed to certain venom peptides, cell membrane function is altered to where you can't pump the potassium into the cells. So you can be starving even though you have all the dietary sources. Where in that case, nutrition can't solve it. You've got to get rid of the venoms. So just wanted to throw that in there as a nutritionist.
Yeah, you know your stuff on this. And you're right. These things need to be used in conjunction with dietary protocols, and that there are some dietary protocols that may help aid that process. But a lot of people do all that they can in the dietary area, whether it's a very clean diet, and they can't get better. And I just really feel bad for these people because I know what it's like. I've been in that battle before, and this links back to what's been happening. Mike, we see this issue with HIV/AIDS. We see that this is what has been done, and the homology sequence, the fact that cobra venom and HIV and the rabies virus, that the homology sequence, meaning the origin and the actuality of how it's identical of these compositions. This cobra venom is really the culprit. It's the mechanism, and it doesn't make any sense. The story that we got told about an African having sex with a monkey, which is part of this dark Darwinistic agenda to make you think that they're lower evolved species and that they're fine to wipe people out. And this is what Charles Darwin was doing during his time. He was responsible for the entire genocide of the entire Aboriginal people of Australia, in Tasmania specifically. So there are no people that survived that on these conquests, and it was all based on these dark understandings. And then HIV was then pushing that narrative still, that people would do this, they would debase themselves like this, and then they're infected because of this thing. Instead, the actual reality was they were getting injected with poisons, as we have been across the world. And this HIV was the homology sequence, the fact that it matches completely cobra venom. This is published PubMed studies. Again, you can go and look at the mainstream sources that show this. It's GP 120.
And then Fauci comes along and says, here, take AZT. Which guess what that's based on, and then guess what happened? Then people they lose their immune function, and then they get diagnosed with more AIDS, but it was induced by the drugs in many cases, and it's a perpetual cycle. I mean, it's this scam, and this man Fauci has been involved in these scams for decades, and it's the same scam over and over again. It's incredible.
You nailed it. That's exactly the case that's happening. And it's tragic. And so then we see this exponential rise in cancer, and then this major suppression of actual cancer cures that were working through the centuries, and especially in the last 100 years. And so, what can then correct these issues? If what I'm saying is true, if this is a remake, a rehashing, it's something that dysregulates our system so terribly, what do we do? And so, I know that that's what the audience want to hear. Like, how do we put diseases in remission? How do we put cancer? How do we put autoimmune disease? How do we take these vaccine injuries. And one of the things I wanted to make sure that was clear as well, because people are getting injured left, right, and center. And we've had cases of people that had the most horrific vaccine injuries. I'll give you an example. Gloria Charlene, she was injured back 2 years ago after her second Pfizer shot. She had an induced cycle period that kept going for the next 7 months, bleeding 16 days a month, a double period. Double cycling. That was accompanied by heart palpitations that was so severe it felt like her heart was beating out of its chest. She'd start going numb on one side of the body, showing signs that she was about to have a stroke, a heart attack. She had to give up all kinds of physical activity. She couldn't take a flight of stairs. Her eyes were so sensitive to light, she had to lie down and close her eyes during just being exposed to any kind of light bulbs, daylight. And this pain was so severe. She had the worst pain she'd had in her life. When a woman says that and they have a child, you have to kind of realize they're pushing it. They're saying that this was worse than childbearing, and it happens every month. And so this woman was dying. She'd got her 17-year-old into a position where here's the family members you need to go with if something happens to me. And it just ruined their life. Her partner, she felt, was going to leave her because she just wasn't the same person. She was going through so much. And we documented this whole story because what had happened was I met her in January. I shared a therapy with her that changed her life. And it was something that was free. It was something that she didn't have to run around, chase white coats and hope that she could get one test that would hopefully give the right diagnosis that she could take to another doctor, and then hopefully get the right prescription that she could then put the right thing in her body that hopefully her body could absorb it, and that she would get a remission of symptoms. She didn't have to go through that because that wasn't working, and it had been 2 years and she was still suffering. She was dying. And I've seen a lot of cases like this. She put her condition so much into remission the first day she even tried the therapy, which I'm going to talk about more, that her heart palpitations stopped and they never came back again. We're in November of the time that we're doing this, and it's been that long. It was February since then. Never had a heart palpitation come back. Her bleeding cycle completely normalized within a period of about 2 months. It was 2 months, and then she had then no pain, just what you'd want. But all the signs of regeneration are the most amazing ones. And that's going to link to something we're going to talk about in regards to stem cells. Stem cells is something that you'd think is incredibly expensive and that you simply can't afford it. And too bad it's just for the ultra wealthy. But I'm going to say the opposite is true. The best stem cells are actually the ones that are most within reach and the ones that don't cost anything. This is how she reversed her condition. She started completely regenerating. Her hair is growing beautifully soft and her knees don't crack and pop. At the bottom of her feet aren't chapped. She's healthier today than what she was before she got the vaccine. This opened my eyes.
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this, because the best stem cells that you can get are the ones your body makes. And I mean, they're personalized and they're free. And once you understand this, your body makes stem cells that are ideally suited for the physiological challenges that your body is undergoing. And your body can manufacture millions of dollars worth of stem cells in terms of current market prices, just like your brain can manufacture brain chemistry. It does it all the time, every day. In normal, healthy, balanced brain chemistry. If you were to try to buy those specific molecules or have them injected or artificially made or prescribed, you'd spend a fortune. Well, guess what? If you go out, if you exercise, if you experience a moment of joy, if you, pray, if you experience, faith in your life, if you experience nature, whatever, this creates brain chemistry that's worth a fortune, right? So that's just a little taste of what's to come. Let me just remind people before you answer that, Jonathan, your series is called Disease in Reverse, and it begins airing November 18th, which is a Saturday on Brighteon University. That's brighteon.com. It airs for free, a new episode each day. Registration is required. You have the option to purchase not only the entire download of the series, but also many, many special bonuses as well. Maybe you can talk about those in a little bit, but the purchase is optional. You can watch the whole thing for free. If you do choose to purchase it, some of the purchase price goes to support Jonathan's efforts, and some of it goes to support our platform, Brighteon. So we thank you for your support. But go ahead and answer that, Jonathan, carrying on with stem cells.
Absolutely. And and if you like later, I can talk about some of those amazing bonus gifts and all that kind of thing. But the stem cell aspect is so powerful because, so this explains this. And now if it was just an anomaly, if this is one case, I would say, okay, well, isn't that great? Isn't that great for that person? And wouldn't that be great if that happened for everyone? But I can tell you this, and and Mike, you've known me for a long time. You've known that I've never hyped something up and said something that was like outlandish and over promising or over hyping a therapy, because it's just cruel. You know what I mean, right? You should just tell what is true. But I can tell you that I've never seen this not work yet. I'm sure, you know, that there could be factors and there's different things to then combine, because never should there necessarily be a sole therapy and that's the only therapy people are using. But I've never seen people not have remarkable breakthrough improvements using this, which is really exciting. So what, and there were people that were, even over the last couple of weeks, some people that were on their deathbeds, and they turned this around, like people that were going catatonic, that were losing, you know, enormous amounts of weight. Like Nancy Henderson, she went from like 140 down to 80 pounds, and half of her face was basically just covered in, it was all black, and she couldn't see out of her eye. It was completely covered, and just this raging pain. It was one of those diagnoses of shingles. It was in connection to the tetanus shot and COVID together, and whatever other toxins that accumulated. She was just being destroyed from the inside out. And she is happy, healthy today. She looks incredible. It was such a short period of time to turn this condition around for her using these therapies. So what had happened for Gloria was in this study of trying to understand, well, if what I'm saying is true, if these toxins and poisons are venom-based, then how do you get anti-venom therapies? And nicotine is one. It will bind and compete for the same receptor. And how do you get your original DNA? If DNA damage has been done, how do you get your original DNA? And this goes back to understanding biology. And I think that this is where also people come back to God in the way that they see themselves and healing. And that's what happened with this woman, Gloria. I remember her saying one day, she said, one day, it was like about a month after you talked to me, you showed me, explained it to me, but it sounded too out there, and I just didn't do it. But then one day, I after thinking I've got to chase all these doctors and try to get these solutions, then my mind switched, and I said to myself, I'm going to God is going to be the one that is going to heal me. He's going to heal me, and he's going to do it through this. And so now the therapy I'm talking about has basically been the most studied substance in modern medicine. There's no single studied substance more than this that has more uses and applications also, and that is the study of urine itself. And like you mentioned about this stem cell aspect, this is something that we haven't been told about, the fact that there are stem cells in our urine, and they're so important, foundational to the building blocks of life. It's the womb that is actually an environment of our urine and our stem cells within our urine. And it's not the only aspect. I don't want to just make urine all about the stem cells. It's a key part, but it's one part that allows people to understand how powerful it is. What happens at the 10-week mark, it's the baby who's, through its nostrils, has the urine go through and actually form the lungs. And now when you understand stem cell science, you'll realize now the proliferation rate, Mike, is actually in a 3-week period, urine will go from 140 stem cells in a 24-hour urine sample. This is for an adult. And it will proliferate into 100 million stem cells in a period of 3 weeks, which is 1 times 10 to the power of 8 in that period. So 100 million stem cells that are mesenchymal stem cells, in that they completely model a mesenchymal stem cell and its immunophenotype and doubling time, but it is its own category. It's called a urine-derived stem cell. One of the most amazing things about these cells is they can't form tumors or teratomas, which is beautiful, because stem cells actually do target cancerous tumors. That's really critical for people to understand that. That's why they're getting used as delivery mechanisms for chemo drugs. But the key is, if you understand that urine has antigens to cancer in it, that's something that is, mainstream science is telling us that. You've got a stem cell and an antigen. There's a delivery mechanism to take the specific poison, allow the body to identify it, to trigger an antibody response. So an antigen in the body will produce an antibody response. That connection between antigen and antibody is a recognition that causes the body to recognize self and non-self and say, you're a cancerous cell, you're a healthy cell. And one of the things that people don't talk about is that the thing behind cancer cells is cancer stem cells. And when you understand stem cell science, you understand that stem cells aren't fully differentiating. In fact, they're basically completely undifferentiated. And cancer stem cells are behaving like one-cell amoebas. They don't know what they are and what they're supposed to be. So they stay in this form. And what is now being understood is that, and this is what has been proven over the centuries with urine therapy, was that urine-derived stem cells, or actually mesenchymal stem cells in general, will actually track themselves toward tumors and then educate cancer stem cells of what they're supposed to be and help them switch their form back into a healthy cell.
I've heard it described as a signaling system.
Exactly.
A signaling system. Like there's information actually in urine. And I was shocked when I first interviewed, for example, Dr. Ed Group on this subject. I was shocked when he explained to me, and perhaps you can add to this, the number of modern prescription pharmaceuticals that are actually derived from urine. For example, I believe hormone replacement therapy, but there are also antivenoms. The way they get antivenoms, at least as I understand it, is they inject toxins into a large animal like a horse, and then the horse generates the antivenoms, and then they collect the horse's blood. They collect the horse's urine, and then they somehow extract antivenoms from that. Is that accurate, or am I mixing that up?
Almost, except for the fact that sadly they don't use the urine; they extract the blood back out. This is how I understand it, and then they're spinning the blood and then using that compound, that antigen, or antibody response to be an antivenom. The problem is, guess what? You can't improve on God. And guess what the problem is with antivenoms? They can absolutely kill you. They're so dangerous that if you have like a child envenomated by something, you take them to the doctor, they'll sit there and decide whether they should give the antivenom or not based on the fact that it could kill them instead of just their body dealing with the problem. So, but urine has never been known to do that. It can't harm you. That's what's amazing about it. So your body will naturally do it and do a much better job, but it is the same ideology. It's about an antibody response that happens within the infected organism, which in this case is you. So your body knows what you're infected with, and that could be anything, whether it's a venom or a toxin or pollutant or a heavy metal. Your body is going to put out a product which is not a waste product. It's giving you a metabolic breakdown of that, which is an ion metabolic form of that, which when you reintroduce it into the body causes the body to identify that and remove that from the body. It's certainly not the waste product. If it was, babies would die in the womb. All the chemicals that are going through the umbilical cord, which is 287 on average, would reinfect the baby because the urine would keep compounding as it urinates, drinks the urine, and this is happening on a 3-hour period often, especially in the third trimester. It amplifies in this production, but instead it's actually self-healing. It's healing in many cases fluid cysts in the brain and bright spots in the heart, actually things that would be considered deformities and lifelong illnesses or even things that would cause death. It's resolving this, and the only thing it's doing is actually cycling that urine. So if urine was toxic, the babies would be so deeply affected because their eyes, their ears, everything would be infected. And in reference to what you're talking about, this kind of references back all the different uses for urine. Urokinase, which is for blood clots, and that's extracted actually from urinols. One of the companies that does that is Brighteon, that are a subsidiary of Enzymes for America, and that back over 30 years ago was a $500 million industry just for the urokinase extract for blood clots and for cancer, which is important for people to understand.
So anti-clotting factors are extracted from urine right now.
Exactly.
For the pharmaceutical industry.
They're the best. There's nothing that compares to it in terms of, but your body's response is so much better than taking a packaged form of it and having all those toxins and additives, because you're getting everything in one. Like you're getting stem cells, you're getting autologous stem cells, one healing that arises from yourself. You're getting metabolites, you're getting urinmetabolome.ca is a website where you can find every single documented metabolite. There's 5,600. You're getting around 3,000 around there in a daily urination. That is what you can use then to allow the body to identify toxins.
Hold on a second. So Big Pharma, for some of their medications, they're selling you pills that consist of other people's urine or other animals' urine, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Premarin is pregnant mare urine. Exactly. Murine is urine with the letter M in front, is for ears and eyes. And so every application, urea is basically the only clinically proven skin moisturizer in the world. You've got urea for burns, and then just all these names that actually have the word urine in them. It was so heavily studied, Mike. This was the thing. This is the travesty. To go back and look at, like, even in 1948, there was researchers that came together and they found of the 300 clinicians, they'd compiled thousands of laboratory studies and hundreds of cases of people putting cancer into remission using something called the H11 extract, which is just human urine that was being injected for cancer patients. To basically, what they understood was antigens connected to antibodies, and they would put cancer in remission. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just reacting to that they were injecting that.
Exactly, often into the subcutaneous fat. And because what this would do is it would trigger the body continually to recognize, here's the cancer, here's the problem. And if you read all the different studies, they claimed basically close to 100% efficacy of the fact that it just worked, it continued to work. And it was a travesty because, could you imagine, 300 doctors presenting thousands of laboratory studies and then getting pushed back as if it was nothing? And this kept happening. All these different researchers, another two researchers in 1966 found a compound that they named Brighteon, because what they did was every time they did this, they would take a cancer cell, they'd put urine together with it. Every time they put urine with the cancer cell, it would cause the cancer cells to align themselves in straight rows. And this comes back to what I was referencing about the fact that what is happening is what you mentioned, which is a cell signaling issue. And this is why all these different cases resolve themselves. People that had such dysregulation in their body, they were able to resolve this by correcting the cell signaling, giving the right messages to their body. And this is why a baby, for example, it knows exactly what it's supposed to be. When a stem cell in the urine is attaching itself to the genetic blueprint of that baby, it knows what it's supposed to be, and it forms itself into that tissue. And that's what's happening in the womb. That's why lungs are actually being formed by urine. They're not actually it's not just happening and it's somehow growing in this toxic environment. The Bible refers to the breath of life. It actually says God breathed into Adam's nostrils in Genesis 2, the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And in the womb, when you see the urine go in, filled with stem cells going in to form the lungs, you actually see an example of what it says in the Bible. And it talks about the river of life. And it talks about in Proverbs 5, drink water from thine own well, draw water from thine own cistern. These have multiple references and meanings, but if you look at the history and you realize every culture had this in it, every main culture that you could reference back to me, whether it was Egyptian, Greek, Roman, especially Judaism, so the Jewish lineage, and then ancient cultures like China, it was prolific. It was universally practiced often. Japan, and you're very familiar with a lot of these cases that happen around the world, even in native tribes like Native Australian Aboriginals and Americans, Native Americans, Puerto Rican, Taínas. These cultures had this, and it passed down thousands of years because it worked, and it would work for so many different conditions. In the 14th century, it was being used for cancer as an example under German empires, and then these examples I was talking about, like in the case where the 300 doctors come and they're referencing this as getting shut down as if nothing is happening, there's nothing to see here. Hundreds and hundreds of cases, presented, thousands actually, through especially in Japan, especially in Europe, in America, these studies were being presented and being pushed back, and they were working. And often the use was the oral use, because it models what's happening in the womb. And even though it sounds like, oh, well, how do I get my head around that? But just remember that this was part of when Big Pharma, Rockefeller, Carnegie, when they were pushing this new way, they had to demonize urine, because what had happened was people knew of the therapeutic benefits of it. And once they took that away from us, it created a need for us to think about something as exterior, to even create a vaccine. Even though these things were just naturally working that way in our own bodies, our bodies are producing their own vaccines naturally.
See, you just hit upon something really critical. And Jonathan, we're almost out of time. We do have to wrap this up here. But what I've found, whether people follow what you're saying or not, and I should remind people they can learn a lot more about this and many other topics in your docu-series called Disease in Reverse. But the system of Western medicine systematically works to deprive people of access to things that work, whether it's a prescription drug like ivermectin or natural medicine growing in the so-called weeds and herbs around you. I mean, for example, not long ago, I was harvesting pine needles from the loblolly pine trees here in Central Texas. And I washed them and ground them up and used the ultrasonic extraction in order to get shikimic acid. Shikimic acid is used in Tamiflu as an anti-pandemic molecule that halts the spread of viral diseases as Western medicine describes them. You can find it in pine tree needles, right? But no one is allowed to talk about pine tree needles. And if you sold pine tree needles and said that this stops pandemics, you'd be arrested and charged by the FTC and the FDA. And yet I drive up and down the roads in Central Texas and this medicine is growing all around me. But Western medicine makes every effort to deprive us of that knowledge and that access. So again, whether what you're saying resonates with people or not, I honor the fact that indigenous cultures around the world, they looked at everything, the trees, the minerals, even their own urine, the water, the herbs, even in Chinese medicine, like locust shells. What's in locust shells? Why is that part of traditional Chinese medicine? Guess what? There's something in there. There's a molecule in there. But the ancient cultures looked at everything. They weren't predispositioned to just say, no, it has to be a prescription drug. So your comments on that, and then we got to wrap it up, Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's amazing, Mike. And we get back to nature, get back to God's way. Just look at these therapies. You have to realize a lot of people are not given any hope with cancer, and as one of the many diseases that we're discussing here, but it's one that is given the least amount of hope for. And if you knew that your body had its own signaling mechanism for how to cancel this problem, and you knew that through history this was the go-to method for cancer, and if you knew that drugs were getting sold back to you for cancer, as one of the many examples, let alone heart conditions and all these things, if you knew that all these different things were coming back to you and getting sold to you, and yet it wasn't from you, and it was getting watered down in a way that it wasn't actually effective and filled with toxins and poisons, and missing that unique response that your body needs to signal itself, to give itself what it needs. And if you knew that, you'd think so much differently about this. You'd have so much power within yourself, and you'd be willing to educate yourself and reconsider how you've looked at things and look at solutions that work. And this is one of many solutions that we talk about. And we talk about all kinds of detoxification methods to get toxins and poisons out of your body. So we want to encourage people just, use all the tools available to you. This is one of many. But it's one that I wanted to emphasize just so people knew, because my goal here is to empower people. And that's why we have sites like urintherapy.com, where we've got a ton of free resources there. People could just read and download, and Dr. Ed Group and I, we're the ones behind that, and we just want people to save their lives. There's 7 billion people that are suffering in the world right now because we're all victims of this mass agenda. And if I denoted anything down to a particular compound or some expensive formulation or something like that, if it was all about that, what would happen would be that most of the world would never be able to get access to it. And then so many people are going to suffer and miss out. But if God has a way for everyone, and that is that there are solutions that are within us, and we can use those to heal ourselves, and we have that empowerment. We don't have to be afraid. And I remember how Masaru Emoto would find this when in his New York Times bestseller that water is programmed. It's with our thoughts, and you can see these beautiful structures in water, and you realize that our own water is structured, and it has frequencies that are taken from throughout our body. There's a message there, there's information, and it's the critical building blocks of life. And our whole generation in the world was through this water, through this living water, and now we've forgotten about it during a time we need it the most. We're not the most healthy society, we're the sickest, and we deserve to know what our forebears had,
and water is
Christian
more than 2 parts
heritage.
hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. It's not just the physical elements. It's much more. And by the way, you don't see H2O like individuated molecules just running around. They meld with each other. They join and then divide and flow. I mean, it's a community of atomic elements. It's not just H2O as little shells or ping pong balls rolling around. Anyway, we can have a whole discussion about physics and chemistry another time. But Jonathan, this has been a fascinating discussion, and I want to thank you for taking the time. And I want to mention again that the free docuseries begins November 18th. It's a Saturday on Brighteon University, which is brightedu.com, and that's the letter U, like university. So just go to brightedu.com, register there. It's free to watch. There are optional purchases. You can find out more about those by registering there, and enjoy the knowledge that you will get from the summit. And thank you, Jonathan, for not only putting all of this together, but also being willing to let us air this for free to our audience. You're going to help a lot of people. You're going to save a lot of lives and empower people with knowledge and information through this series. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for being willing to share this information with others. And look, guys, check out the 9-part series. It's life-changing. It will give you so much hope. It'll give you answers for your loved ones. It'll be a tool that you can just reference. And, we're streaming it for free. And we're also, as people, after they've finished watching it, if you love it and you want to own it, we've put a whole bunch of, there's a few $1,000s worth of free gifts that we've put in there just to help you and support you and give you what you need, helping you detox, helping you get cellular regeneration, have the best health that you can possibly have. And we've got some of the best experts in the world sharing, and you can use this tool, you can use it for your friends and family, and it's so great to have it. I've seen thousands of people's lives completely change through it, and I want people to know that they can get that and they can change their lives for the better.
Well said. Yeah, exactly. You're not powerless, and you haven't run out of options. If you think you've tried everything, try watching this docuseries, and you'll learn that there are a lot more doors that you may not have yet explored. But thank you so much, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I hope we get to speak again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Take care. And for those of you watching again, you can register for this docuseries called Disease in Reverse at brighteon.com, or Brighteon University is what the site is called. Again, brighteon.com. And we provide this free of charge. Just register. You can watch it for free. We cover all the bandwidth costs. And by the way, through other docuseries that we've had at Brighteon University, we have now reached many millions of people with various broadcasts over the past several months. So you can join with those people to experience knowledge, wisdom, and great benefits for your health by learning this information at no cost to you. So thank you for watching today. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon. And you can see more of my interviews at brighteon.com. God bless you all. Thank you for watching today. Take care. All right, I'm going to do something unusual for you today. I've got here the Ranger buckets from healthrangerstore.com that so many people have invested in as a food supply. This is certified organic, laboratory verified, but I'm going to actually go through and open these and show you what's in them today and show you our dedication to the kind of packaging, the kind of secure packaging, and the quantity of what you get in here. This is just one of these are almonds in here, one of the types of packaging that we have. I want you to notice how secure it is. You can, no, it's okay, sit. I don't want my dog to get alerted by that. But you've got different nuts and seeds in the package, and then if you take off this lid, there we go, you've got these kinds of hard bricks of vacuum packed with the aid of nitrogen in this very rigid, rugged, thick material that prevents oxygen from oxidizing these products. So here we have black beans. Here we have lima beans. Here we have millet and rice. Again, all certified organic, all laboratory verified. We test them for heavy metals. We test them for pesticides or herbicides like glyphosate, flax seeds here. We test them for microbiology to make sure that you're not getting E. coli, salmonella, yeast, or mold. Here's red lentils, high protein. Again, all certified organic. And in this pail, it makes it virtually rodent proof. So more of the smaller packages here, these tend to be nuts and seeds, and some butter powder. Now the ingredients vary based on what's actually available right now from the world supply of food. So you need to go to our website, healthrangerstore.com, to see what's actually in the buckets that are available right now. It can vary, but here's certified organic popcorn. Here's red beans. Here's quinoa. Here's some more small red beans, pinto beans. And, that might be palm sugar and cacao powder. It just depends. It varies based on what we have available. So you'll have to go there and check it. But look, this is what you get in a 2-bucket set. It's a huge number of servings. It can feed a lot of people for an extended period of time. The actual statistics are on the website. If you want to know how many calories and how many servings, it's all right there at healthrangerstore.com. But folks, this is built for long-term storage. This is no joke. Between the buckets that are very rugged and roadworthy, you can take these on the road. They can handle a certain amount of abuse. And the sealed packages that keep out oxygen and prevent oxidation. This is serious long-term preparedness. And then these can be used in, hundreds of different recipes. And you can add things like if you have availability of butter or even lard. If you're into animal products, you can add those other ingredients to various meals and soup mixes using these base ingredients. And then you can get your nutrition that way, and you can make it through an extended period of societal failures, food shortages, famine, or even food inflation. All of these food items are going to go up in price as time goes on here, because of the collapsing value of the dollar. And what that means is it's never going to be as affordable as it is right now. Food prices aren't going down, they're only going up. But this is a tremendous amount of food. And it's when you cook it, of course, it expands because these are dried formats. So this, even here, as much as this is with the stacks and the pouches and everything, it looks like so much more when you actually cook it. So again, look at the website, healthrangerstore.com, search for Ranger buckets. And if you don't need this much food, or you just want one of these items, you can get what are called mega buckets or mini buckets that focus on, just one or two materials. All right, so here's an example of a mega bucket right here. This one contains only hard red wheat that is certified organic and lab tested, as are all our products. But you can get these individual buckets that are dedicated to one item if you wish, if you just want more of one certain thing. And we have these number 10 cans here, by the way, of different products. This is certified organic palm sugar, a low glycemic sweetener. And here's a number 10 can of just macadamia nuts. And even though these have plastic lids, they're sealed steel cans. So they're completely rodent proof with very long shelf life. They're very rugged, and they're also easy to handle because of their size. And again, we have all kinds of different food items, whether it's nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, all kinds of things, including whey protein, powdered milk, things like that, available right now at healthrangerstore.com. If you're concerned at all about the availability of the food supply, then you absolutely want to check this out, because what we have is unmatched anywhere in the world. Nobody does as much laboratory testing for the cleanliness of their foods as we do. Nobody in the world. And we do more testing than anybody. We have our own ISO accredited laboratory that we operate, that is audited, it is inspected, it is, and our whole facility is, by the way, certified organic, USDA audited and inspected annually, if not more often, including kosher certification for most of these items as well. You can find all the details on our website, again, healthrangerstore.com. When you're looking for backup food supplies, this is your answer right here. We've got it. We've been making this for years. We ship ourselves out of our own warehouse, our own fulfillment center in Central Texas, and we're ready to deliver these products to you right now so that you can get prepared. And of course, every purchase helps support our network and our efforts here at Brighteon.com. So thank you for your support. I'm Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, and get prepared is all I can say for what's coming. Thank you again for your support. God bless you. God bless America. Take care.
A global reset is coming, and that's why I've recorded a new 9-hour audiobook. It's called The Global Reset Survival Guide. You can download it for free by subscribing to the naturalnews.com email newsletter, which is also free. I'll describe how the monetary system fails. I also cover emergency medicine and first aid and what to buy to help you avoid infections. So download this guide. It's free. It's my gift to you simply because I want like-minded people to survive.